And look at the pieces, how they have been scrambled up on the last rank. What is Gukesh's first move going to be is an interesting question. And this battle is actually a very, very exciting one because Fabi is considered by many as the best player after Magnus Carlsen in the world of chess for years. And Gukesh is the current world champion. And Gukesh taking his time for the first move because you want to get the opening right. He plays f4 and look at this. It immediately launches the bishop to attack the pawn on a7. How is Fabi going to react to it? Well, he first adjusts his pieces. There are a few ways you can react. You can put your pawn on b6, but that kind of limits the knight. And you don't want to be doing that. You can play f5 and actually attack white's pawn as well. But Caruana goes for the safest choice, which is to develop the knight to b6, blocking the bishop's path to a7. Now the knight comes out to b3. The knight is developed, and I think one of the main things you want to do in freestyle chess is to continue developing your pieces. Caruana gains space in the center. He plays f5. Few ways to continue now. Knight g3 attacking the pawn, but Gukesh goes directly for e4. Central play by the youngster, and he activates his rook on the e file. Caruana takes the pawn, f takes e4. And now rook takes makes a lot of sense. So he takes it, rook takes e4. And now black has to decide what is the way. c6 is a very nice move, trying to develop this bishop. But he brings his bishop out to d5, attacking the rook. Now, one thing that needs to be done very carefully in freestyle chess is to make sure that your bishops are working. So rook goes back. If the bishops are working, most likely your position should be fine because the knights will find their path. So rook comes to e1. Now queen comes to g8, defending the bishop here, also activating the queen because, you know, there was not doing much on this diagonal there. And now bishop f2. I like this move because what Gukesh is trying to do is going to play queen g1. At the same time, the bishop could some point be activated via h4. Knight comes to g6. A very provocative move attacking the pawn. Now, why do I call it provocative? Because Gukesh can simply push the pawn, which he does now, and attack the knight. The knight can't go to h4, so it comes to f4 attacking g2. But I believe that Gukesh already has his move ready, which is knight to e3, and he plays it, attacking the bishop and also the pawn. Now, will Fabi save his bishop here on c6, or will he do something else? He decides to play in the center with e5. You can take en passant, but then the bishop will take back and be safe. So Gukesh rightly takes the bishop. Now you have the bishop pair here in the position. And that is something for sure. Whether the bishops are useful or not, that remains to be seen. But you have these two nice bishops. You also have a kingside pawn majority. So let's see if Gukesh starts rolling those pawns. Yes, he does. Pawn to g4. Already the opening is looking quite nice for white here. Now Caruana plays his pawn to c6. He pushes his pawn forward and cements the knight's space in the center. Gukesh goes rook a1. I really like this creative move. He wants to play a4, a5 and dislodge this knight on b6. Fabi goes knight to f4, making space for this knight to come to d5. And Gukesh pushes the pawn to a4. Now, you really want to stop this pawn from coming any further, because if white can get a5, a6, the a7 pawn is also soft. So Fabi stops it with a5. The knight on b6 is slightly loose. Also, if you take the pawn, there is rook a8 trying to win back the a4 pawn. So Gukesh goes knight c5. And what essentially Gukesh is trying is to reroute his knight to e4. Looking at the weakened d6 square, knight comes to d5. So the position is mounting in pressure here. And Gukesh plays his knight to e4, a fantastic move. Looking at the d6 square, not so easy for black to continue here. Fabi plays queen f8, and now if bishop c5, he'll simply go bishop e7 and trade off these bishops. Gukesh goes g5. Very, very interesting. Now you can't take this pawn because of the fork here. and he's trying to go f6 perhaps. Caruana goes bishop b6 and tries to trade off this dark squared bishop, which is slightly to black's favor because white's dark squared bishop is pretty good. Takes. Knight takes back. And is Gukesh going to push forward with f6? Yes, he does. He's pushing his pawn forward. If you take here, my knight jumps in, attacks the rook. The rook is active here. So clearly you don't want to be taking. He goes king c7, controlling the important d6 square. And now queen comes to g1. The queen is eyeing these important squares here, the weakened dark squares in the position. And Caruana pushes the knight away. d5. And this is now the start of a very, very interesting moment in this game because Gukesh takes the pawn. He's like, if you take here, I'm ready to jump in with my knight and attack your rook. But Caruana has an incredibly powerful move, queen b4, and he finds it with just 14 minutes on the clock. This game is really heating up. Now the knight is attacked, so he goes knight c5. A natural move would have been knight f6, but then knight c4 would have created a lot of pressure. So Gukesh decides to go here, d4 played in order to attack the knight. A great idea is to queen now and pick up this pawn on e5. But let's see if Gukesh manages to find it. He decides to come back to b3, which is also okay. He defends now his b2 pawn so that the knight c4 and queen and knight combo of black won't attack that. And look at the times now. 10 minutes for both sides. It's only 30 seconds increment. There's no second time control. Rook comes to e7. A good move. Trying to attack here also. Bringing the other rook to g8 because it's not playing. And what a move now. Rook e4. This really creates a lot of pressure in the position. Caruana goes knight c4. He's bringing the knight in, but that's a mistake. Will Gukesh find this super powerful move, queen f1? He's thinking the idea is to push the pawn to c3 after that, and the queen would be attacking the knight. And he finds it. Amazing move. On the side, there can also be threats of queen takes knight, pawn takes knight, and rook hanging if the queen is not there. He brings the knight here and he instantly pushes c3. There was also possibility to play queen f4, but c3 has been played. Fabi plays queen c4, and now Gukesh must find queen takes f4, ef4, rook takes e7, and he really has excellent chances in this position. No, he goes queen takes c4, knight takes c4, and now the position is equal. It's no longer so great. Black is back and Gukesh must simply take on d4 with his knight now. Yes, he does. Good move. Knight takes d4. You can't take the knight because the rook is hanging. He comes back, knight d6. And now, I mean, you want to go back with the rook, but there's knight to d5. So he takes it. Pawn takes. And to tell you the truth, this position is roundabout even. But bishop b3. What an interesting move. His point is if you take with the rook, there's a fork here. Otherwise, I'm simply queening here. So he goes king d7, an excellent move. Because if you queen, then later on there's a check. So a very wise move would be king c2. But instead Gukesh does queen. And rook takes. Bishop takes. Check here. And all of a sudden Gukesh is also losing his rook here. Although the position still remains a bit complicated because Gukesh gets this h7 pawn and he has some hopes with this pawn running down the board. Caruana brings the king in. Now a very important move is bishop d3 so that if this is attacked you can go knight f3 and the bishop controls all the important squares. This would be kind of equalish, but he goes h4 and I think this is the final mistake of the game. h4, pushing this pawn maybe with just 9 seconds on the clock, something that Gukesh might not have calculated it through. Rook h1 played, attacking the pawn on h4. And now you can't save this pawn. That's the problem. If you go g6, I have knight to e8. Very strong move. So he goes knight f3, defending the h4 pawn. Rook comes to h3, attacking the knight. And knight jumps in. Knight to e5. Now the h4 pawn is hanging. f3. The king comes in trying to stop this pawn. And I like this move, king e6. So he's attacking the knight. Pawn to g6. So no time to take the knight as such. g7 and making a queen. But he goes knight f5. And now knight jumps to f7. Not so sure what the threat is here though. Maybe knight g5 check, and he's losing material. So he goes king f6. Again, Fabi is very calm in converting such positions. g7, f2 comes with a check, king e2. And now you can take the pawn, but Fabi is so strong. He goes rook f3. If you take here, I'm going to queen with a check. You can't queen because I'm anyway queening with a mate. You can make a knight with a check, but that hardly helps. So Gukesh resigns the game, and Fabiano Caruana takes 1-0 lead in the match. What a game this was, with so many fighting moves, so many calculations. In the end, the time pressure was intense, and Caruana managed to outwit Gukesh. With this, he takes lead in the match, and now Gukesh is in a must-win situation with the black pieces. It's not going to be easy at all, but that's what you have to do in these mini matches. The players arrange their pieces, get ready for the next game, and there we have the second game of the Freestyle Chess 2025 Grand Slam Tour in Weissenhaus. Gukesh with the black pieces will try to take down Caruana and equalize the scores and take it to the tie breaks. You can see him adjusting the pieces. He brings the clock slightly towards his side, adjusts his suit. Red is his color here. Each player has been given a suit for their own color, and there you see Fabiano Caruana coming in. He has a blue jacket, and he's removed it, and he's wearing his shirt. Caruana, of course, one of the finest players in freestyle chess as well, not just in normal chess. And to beat him with black will take some humongous efforts from Gukesh. The players are ready. It's time to start the second game. A handshake, and off we go. Now, what's the move Caruana is going to play? He goes knight to b3 and presses the clock. Again, the position is slightly similar to last game. The bishop is looking here, so you could have opened with f4 as well. And maybe a slightly accurate move now is knight c6 with the idea of e5. Gukesh takes his time, and rightly so, because this is an important first move. He plays knight to b6. He brings his knight out. And now pawn to e4 played. So opening up the bishop. And then maybe the other pawn moves to open up the other bishop. e5 played by Gukesh to also stake his claim in the center. And Caruana plays f3. So very solid opening decision, opening up the bishop here, the other bishop. The queen is already well placed. And I believe Gukesh can also play f6. He goes knight c6, which is a nice move, so that when d4 is played, you don't really have to, you can take it here, and your knight is controlling the square. d4 does come in. And slowly the position can shift into something that we already have seen. For example, after e takes d4, knight takes d4, you long castle as black, knight c3, g6, long castle, and bishop g7. This would be a very, very normal game-like position. He takes on d4, but Gukesh, he never really likes normal chess, in the sense that he likes to complicate games. He does play f5. Fascinating move. The ef5 is impossible. Your queen is being lost. So take with the knight. So he takes knight f5. But now you will see the bishop has opened up. So bishop takes a2, rook a1, and maybe bishop f7 or bishop e6. And it looks like a great position. But Gukesh makes an error here. He is thinking about his move, taking on a2, but he goes g6. And that's a huge mistake. It's like, firstly, you have to win this game. And so even a small error is bad, but here the error just means that he's going to lose the pawn. Why? Now let's have a look at it a bit deeper. Fabi finds the move knight d4. You can't take, because knight takes would attack the rook. If you take the pawn on a2, then knight takes c6, and then rook a1 and will attack here. But anyway, he goes and chops it off. This is a big mistake here by Gukesh. Because now Caruana simply goes in with his rook. He attacks the bishop, and the a7 pawn is falling. And here's the thing about this game, that Gukesh is going to lose that pawn without much compensation. Knight takes c6. The only compensation that Gukesh does have in this position is that the king is slightly, you can't long castle now, and short castle is going to take a lot of time. So he takes the pawn, and if Gukesh can quickly short castle, that would be some compensation, then bringing the rook down the open a file. So he plays queen e7. And the idea of this move is that later on, queen b4 would not stop castlings, but what a move by Fabi. He goes queen a5. If you play bishop g7, he just wants to play bishop to c5. So bishop goes to h6, giving a check. Gukesh plays bishop e3. Bishop takes e3. Knight takes. And this is the point, short castles. So black is trying to gain some play here. But the problem with this entire method is Fabi is just too strong in prophylactic thinking. He brings his queen back. So what he's essentially saying is that I'm going to go b3 just to control the a1 square. I'm going to develop my bishop and just short castle here. Gukesh goes rook a8, and rightly so. That's the best move to create counterplay. You have to take the rook. So takes. Rook takes. And now threatening to give a check here. So a very logical move for Caruana is to play b3, and he plays it. He stops here. And now if check, I can simply go king d2. If you give me another check, I block with the bishop. And now my rook is coming in. In fact, h4, h5 is also a big threat. Here Gukesh gives a check, goes queen g5, trying to pin the knight. Caruana just develops the bishop. And now pawn to c5. Trying to maybe create some play with c4 if feasible. And Fabi's route is now clear to short castle. He brings his king to g1 and short castles. He's a clean pawn up. Gukesh needing to win this match. It looks like a very tall order from here. It seems impossible. And you can see Fabi is extremely relaxed. And Gukesh resigns the game. Maybe slightly premature here.